It was well past midnight when the city's pulse finally slowed, wrapping itself in a hush broken only by the distant, lonely hum of traffic, a few tired headlights crawling down endless avenues, headlights that didn't stop for anyone, not even for memories. High above, in the silence of his back seat, billionaire hotelier Nathaniel Cole barely noticed the city's sleepless ache. His world was measured in quiet luxury, the muted ticking of his platinum watch, the cool leather pressing his wrist, the hush of climate control whispering comfort as his car glided toward home. In his world, comfort was a given, discomfort something managed by other people, in other places. Yet as the car rounded the last corner to his penthouse building, Nathaniel's eyes caught a flicker of movement in the halo of the street lamp. A shadow, curled tightly against the side of the marble steps, shivered under a threadbare blanket. Something about the form, a huddled woman, breath puffing like a frightened animal in the cold, struck a strange, jarring note. He might have looked away, as so many do, dismissing the sight as the city's unsolvable background ache. But tonight, the pain seemed to reach through the glass, lingering, calling his attention as if the universe itself refused to let him pass by. The driver slowed, glancing at Nathaniel for instruction. The car's headlights washed over the woman's face for a moment. Nathaniel's heart seemed to stutter. It was her. Maria. The realization hit him with a force money could never blunt. The same Maria who greeted him every morning, always quietly, always early, her hands folded at her waist, her voice a soft breeze in the stillness of his immaculate home. Maria, who pressed his suits to perfection, who remembered how he liked his tea, who never missed a day. He'd seen her wipe away the last smudge of dust from the banister, polish the marble floors until they glowed, then vanish into the background. She was, he'd thought, reliable. Part of the machinery that kept his life running, nothing more. Now she was here outside in the night, her body curled against the cold stone of his own building, invisible and utterly alone. For a moment, Nathaniel didn't move. He sat there, watching his own indifference reflected in the glass, feeling a growing, sickly ache. He stepped out, the night air slapping him awake. Each step toward her felt heavier than the last. He crouched down, his shadow falling over her. "Maria," he whispered, gently touching her shoulder. She woke with a jolt, eyes wide and wild, a trapped animal blinking up at the world. Then she recognized him, and all at once her back straightened, her hands flew to her hair, brushing at her clothes as if dignity could be restored with a single gesture. "Mr. Cole." "Sir, I was just—" Her voice trembled, the words scattering in the cold. Nathaniel swallowed, suddenly unable to remember a single lesson about leadership, about strength, about what to say when the person you see every day is now in need and you've never bothered to notice. Do you sleep here?" He managed, his voice ragged. Maria looked down, her shoes scuffed and thin. "Only sometimes, sir, it's all right." Her gaze fell to the sidewalk. In that instant, Nathaniel felt a fracture open inside himself, a fault line between the world he knew and the world that had always existed just out of sight, where pain lived quietly and no one stopped to ask. The city kept moving. No one else seemed to notice. But tonight, for Nathaniel, the illusion was shattered. For the first time, his life's perfection looked impossibly, painfully small. He led Maria inside, the glass doors parting soundlessly before them. In the warm, golden light of the lounge, she perched on the edge of a vast leather sofa, shoulders tight, hands twisted in her lap, shivering now from shame rather than cold. Nathaniel sat opposite her, his mind racing, his heart heavy with guilt and a fury at himself. How could he have missed this? How could someone he saw every single day have been invisible? "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked, the question breaking the silence. Maria's eyes glistened, but she shook her head. "It's not your problem, sir. You gave me a job. I didn't want to be a burden." The words hit him like a stone. He'd spent millions making everything perfect: architecture, art, imported marble. But the person who kept it shining was falling apart, just out of sight. Morning crept in slowly, the city's first lights streaking through the tall windows. Nathaniel canceled every meeting. He called his lawyer, his therapist, and a friend who ran a women's shelter. Maria needed more than a roof. She needed to know she mattered. But Maria, always proud, always quiet, resisted. "Please, sir, just let me keep working," she pleaded. For the first time in years, Nathaniel smiled. Not the polite, distant smile reserved for investors and gala events, but a real human smile, surprised out of him by her resilience. "You're not my maid anymore, Maria. You're family now." The words felt right. He meant them. It didn't take long for word to spread. The city's rumor mill, always hungry, snapped up the sight of Nathaniel Cole, always so distant, so private, personally carrying boxes into the estate's small guest house, a house he built from the ground up in less than 2 weeks. For Maria, not so she'd serve, but so she'd rest, so she'd have a place to heal, to be seen. Maria tried over and over to refuse the comfort. "It's too much," she said. For every protest, Nathaniel offered a reason she deserved better. "You've held this family together for years." He'd say softly, "Let me do the same for you." When Maria's son, still limping but healing, came to visit, he broke down in grateful sobs. For the first time in years, Maria slept in a real bed, a bed she didn't have to fear losing to the cold or the law or bad luck. That first morning, she woke in a sunbeam, and for a long moment, she let herself believe it was real. But Nathaniel didn't stop there. What started as a single act of restitution grew into a calling. He created the Santiago Foundation, a nonprofit offering shelter, emotional support, and real-world skills to domestic workers who had lost their homes. He could have sent a check, and the world would have applauded, but that wasn't enough. Now he listened. He learned, at foundation events, Nathaniel, once stone-faced and silent, hugged former maids, learned their names, heard their stories. He shook hands with janitors and waitresses. He looked them in the eye. The man who'd once prided himself on control and distance was learning that the world could only be made better by drawing closer, not further away. Maria found new purpose, too. Not as a cleaner, but as a mentor and a guide. She began teaching English, basic banking, and above all, the art of believing in one's own worth. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was transforming lives, one quiet conversation at a time. Years passed, and the world changed with them. Nathaniel's reputation shifted. Where once he was known for his ruthlessness, now he was called the CEO with a heart. Some rolled their eyes, thinking it was just rebranding, but those who saw him with Maria knew it was real. One evening, as autumn shadows grew long, a journalist cornered Maria during a charity gala. "Do you forgive him for not seeing your pain sooner?" they asked, microphone poised. Maria smiled, a small, peaceful smile, full of all the grace she'd given the world. He didn't see, not until he did. But when he did, he didn't look away. "That's all I ever wanted." There was a quiet pride in her answer, the kind that comes from survival and kindness and finally being seen. In the final scene of their shared story, Nathaniel, hair a little grayer, shoulders a little gentler, stood beside Maria on the stage of the Santiago Foundation's annual ceremony. Together, they handed a certificate to a young woman, a former hotel maid who had become a nurse, her tuition paid by the foundation. Applause filled the room, warm and sustained. Maria leaned close, whispering through tears, "Thank you for not driving past." Nathaniel, blinking away his own, answered just as softly, "Thank you for waking me up." For a moment, the world felt gentler, possible, redeemed by the simplest of acts, seeing, not ignoring. Sometimes, the greatest acts of humanity begin with seeing someone we've always overlooked. This isn't just a story about wealth, or guilt, or charity. It's about awareness, about refusing to walk by on the other side, about remembering that every wall we build for safety must be matched by a bridge we build for love. Let's not wait for the world to force us to care. Let's start now. And somewhere, perhaps in the warm circle of light from a window at dawn, Maria sleeps without fear. Nathaniel, too, sleeps, finally at peace, having learned that it's never too late to open your eyes.